Maya Chen sat quietly in the back row of the Galactic Military Academy's strategy classroom, her small frame barely visible behind the towering Krellian cadet in front of her. At 5 feet 4 inches tall and weighing less than most alien children, she drew curious stares and whispered comments from her classmates. The Volthari twins, standing nearly 8 feet tall with crystalline exoskeletons, often joked that a strong breeze might knock her over. The hulking Draknari warrior caste students would flex their 4 muscular arms whenever she passed, as if demonstrating what real strength looked like. Commander Vexthul, a seasoned Krellian officer with battle scars covering his rocky hide, announced the day's assignment. Today you will form tactical units for the upcoming wargame simulation. These exercises will determine your placement in advanced combat courses. The room buzzed with excitement as the various alien species began clustering together, naturally gravitating toward their own kind, or those with complementary abilities. Maya remained seated, watching as partnerships formed around her. The Nitherian psychics paired with the technologically advanced Zephyrians. The heavily armored Gorvak shock troops joined forces with the agile Silthari scouts. Even the peaceful Luminari, known more for their healing abilities than combat prowess, found partners among the diplomatic corps cadets. "What about the human?" asked Zarkai, a Volthari whose voice resonated like crystal chimes. "She looks like she might break if someone accidentally bumps into her." Laughter rippled through the classroom, though it wasn't entirely malicious. To these aliens, humans appeared impossibly delicate. With their soft skin, fragile bones, and lack of natural armor or enhanced abilities. Maya had heard these comments countless times since arriving at the Academy 6 months ago. Earth had only recently joined the Galactic Federation, and humans were still considered a curiosity rather than a serious military presence. Most Federation species possessed obvious advantages in combat: enhanced strength, natural weapons, energy manipulation, or advanced technology integrated into their biology. Humans seemed to have none of these gifts. Commander Vexthul's eyes settled on Maya. "Cadet Chen, it appears you need a partner. Cadet Thrakmar, you're also without a team." A massive Draknari warrior, easily 3 times Maya's size, stomped over with obvious reluctance. His 4 arms could probably bench press a small vehicle, and his thick scaled hide could deflect most standard weapons. "Great," Thrakmar muttered in his rumbling voice. "I get paired with the fragile one. Try not to get yourself killed, little human. I don't want to explain to command why my partner turned into paste during a simple training exercise." Maya simply nodded, accustomed to such reactions. She pulled out her datapad and began reviewing the simulation parameters. The exercise would take place in a virtual environment modeled after the infamous Kethvar campaign, where Federation forces had suffered a devastating defeat against the Void Swarm 3 years prior. Teams would need to accomplish objectives while surviving increasingly difficult enemy encounters. As the other cadets continued their boastful discussions about their combat capabilities and tactical plans, Maya quietly analyzed the historical data from the actual Kethvar battle. She noted patrol patterns, terrain advantages, and the specific weaknesses that had led to the Federation's defeat. While her classmates saw only an opportunity to show off their species' natural abilities, Maya saw a puzzle to be solved. The Volthari twins were already planning to use their crystalline bodies to channel energy attacks. The Draknari were strategizing coordinated assaults using their superior strength and natural weapons. The Nitherian psychics discussed mental coordination techniques that would give them unprecedented battlefield awareness. Maya remained silent, her dark eyes scanning through tactical manuals and combat reports. She had learned early in her academy career that revealing her true capabilities would only create more problems. Better to let them underestimate her, at least for now. The other cadets saw her small stature and assumed weakness, but they didn't understand what being human truly meant. Earth's military had not shared the full extent of human combat experience with the Galactic Federation, while other species had evolved specialized abilities for their particular environments. Humans had become something else entirely. Adaptable survivors who had conquered their own world through intelligence, determination, and an almost frightening capacity for violence when necessary. Maya's fingers traced over the scar on her palm, hidden beneath her academy gloves. That scar held memories that none of her classmates could imagine. Memories of real battles, real death, and the kind of warfare that would make even the bravest Draknari warrior pause. But here, in this classroom full of aliens who had never seen true combat, she was just the fragile human girl who might break if someone looked at her too hard. As the class period ended and cadets began filing out, Maya gathered her materials and prepared for the upcoming simulation. Tomorrow they would enter the virtual battlefield of Kethvar, and her classmates would learn that sometimes the most dangerous predator is the one that doesn't look dangerous at all. Commander Vexthul watched her leave, his experienced eyes noting details that the younger cadets missed. There was something about the way the human moved, a controlled precision that spoke of training far beyond what the academy provided. He made a mental note to review her file more carefully. Earth might have more secrets than the Federation realized. The simulation pods hummed with energy as 50 cadets prepared to enter the virtual battlefield of Kethvar. Maya adjusted her neural interface headset, feeling the familiar tingle as the system synchronized with her brainwaves. Around her, the other cadets were making final equipment checks and engaging in last-minute strategy discussions with their partners. Thrakmar loomed over her, his forearms checking and rechecking his virtual weapon loadout. "Listen, human," he rumbled, his voice carrying the patience one might use with a child. "Stay behind me during combat. Your job is to provide tactical support and try not to get in the way. I'll handle the actual fighting." His scaled hide rippled with confidence as he selected heavy assault weapons that matched his massive frame. Maya nodded silently, selecting what appeared to be a standard reconnaissance loadout: light armor, basic weapons, and enhanced sensor equipment. To the casual observer, it looked like she was planning to hide in the back and avoid direct confrontation. The other cadets smirked at her conservative choices, further confirming their assumptions about human frailty. The Volthari twins, Zarkai and Velnai, were practically glowing with excitement as their crystalline bodies charged with stored energy. Their partner, a tech-savvy Zephyrian named Clichter, was busy configuring advanced hacking protocols. "This will be over quickly," Zarkai announced to nearby teams. "The historical records show the Federation forces were defeated by overwhelming numbers. We'll simply use superior firepower to punch through their lines." The simulation environment materialized around them, a harsh, rocky planet with deep canyons and metallic structures jutting from the landscape. The virtual sky was a sickly green color, filled with the ominous shadows of void swarm vessels. Each team spawned at different locations across the battlefield, with primary objectives appearing on their heads-up displays. Maya's team materialized near the edge of a vast canyon system. Their objective was simple in theory, but difficult in execution: reach the central communication hub and restore Federation communications that had been severed during the original battle. Between them and their goal lay approximately 10 kilometers of hostile territory, crawling with void swarm entities. Thrakmar immediately began charging forward, his heavy weapons blazing as a group of insectoid void creatures skittered toward them. "Stay back, fragile one," he called over his shoulder. "Let me clear the path." His plasma cannon carved through the first wave of enemies with impressive efficiency, his natural strength allowing him to wield weapons that would crush most beings. Maya moved differently. While Thrakmar drew enemy attention with his overwhelming firepower, she slipped through the shadows like smoke. Her movements were economical, precise, and utterly silent. Where other cadets relied on brute force or special abilities, Maya used something far more dangerous: pure human tactical thinking combined with muscle memory earned through real combat experience. She observed the enemy patrol patterns, noting how they responded to Thrakmar's aggressive assault. The void swarm creatures were predictable, following programmed behaviors based on the historical battle data. But Maya could see the gaps in their coverage, the brief moments of vulnerability that occurred between their rotation cycles. A group of void scouts attempted to flank their position. Thrakmar was too engaged with the frontal assault to notice the approaching threat. Maya moved without announcing her intentions, her knife finding the gap in the first creature's carapace with surgical precision. The second enemy fell to a perfectly placed shot that severed its neural cord. The third never saw her coming. "How did you—" Thrakmar began, spinning around to find the flanking force already eliminated. But Maya was already moving, gesturing for him to follow as she led them along a route that avoided the heaviest enemy concentrations. Other teams were struggling. The Volthari twins' energy attacks were impressive, but consumed vast amounts of power, leaving them vulnerable during recharge cycles. The Dreknari shock troops were devastating in direct combat, but lacked the mobility to navigate the complex terrain effectively. The Netherian psychics found their mental abilities partially blocked by the alien nature of the Void Swarm's hive mind. Maya's approach was different. She didn't fight the simulation, she dissected it. Every enemy movement revealed information about their tactical doctrine. Every environmental feature became a potential advantage. She guided Thrakmar through the battlefield like a choreographed dance, arriving at objectives ahead of schedule, while other teams were still battling their way through heavily defended choke points. "This is impossible," Thrakmar muttered as they reached the halfway point without taking a single casualty. "The historical records show this route was heavily defended. How are we moving through it so easily?" Maya paused at the edge of a cliff, studying the terrain below. "The original Federation forces made mistakes," she said quietly. "They used predictable tactics and ignored environmental advantages. The Void Swarm adapted to their patterns and set traps accordingly." She pointed to a series of metallic structures below. "Those defensive positions are designed to counter standard Federation assault doctrine. But they have blind spots." As if to prove her point, the Volthari twins team appeared in the valley below, charging directly toward the heavily fortified positions, exactly as the original Federation forces had done. Within minutes, they were pinned down by devastating crossfire, their energy reserves depleting rapidly as they struggled against prepared defensive positions. Maya studied the tactical display, calculating angles and timing. "Can you create a distraction?" she asked Thrakmar. "Something loud and attention-grabbing?" The massive Dreknari grinned, his tusks gleaming. "Loud and attention-grabbing is what I do best. Little human." He selected his heaviest weapon and began laying down suppressing fire on the enemy positions, drawing their attention away from the trapped Volthari team. Maya vanished into the shadows, moving through terrain that seemed impossible to navigate. She reappeared behind the enemy lines, her actions swift and silent. One by one, the defensive positions fell as she systematically eliminated their operators. Within 10 minutes, the route was clear, and the Volthari twins were able to advance. Zarkai's crystalline face reflected confusion as he processed what had just happened. "How did the human accomplish what our combined firepower could not?" he asked his twin. Maya was already moving toward the next objective, leaving Thrakmar to catch up. For the first time since the simulation began, the massive warrior was starting to suspect that his fragile partner might be something entirely different from what she appeared to be. The central communication hub loomed before them, a massive structure that had been the site of the Federation's final stand during the actual Kethvar campaign. Maya crouched behind a boulder, studying the defensive perimeter through her scope. The simulation had been designed to recreate the exact conditions that had led to the Federation's defeat, complete with the tactical errors that had cost thousands of lives. Thrakmar hunkered down beside her, his massive frame making concealment difficult. "The historical records show this position is nearly impregnable," he whispered, his earlier boastfulness replaced by growing respect for his partner's tactical abilities. 17 teams attempted to take this objective during the original battle. None succeeded. Maya's dark eyes traced the enemy positions, noting weapon placements, patrol routes, and structural weaknesses that the original Federation forces had overlooked. "They failed because they attacked it like a fortress," she said quietly. "But it's not a fortress, it's a communications hub. Different purpose, different vulnerabilities." Around the battlefield, other cadet teams were discovering the brutal reality of the Kethvar simulation. The Netherian psychic team had been eliminated after their mental link was severed by a Void Swarm neural disruptor. 2 Dreknari teams had fallen into carefully prepared kill zones, their strength useless against superior positioning and crossfire. Even the technologically advanced Zephyrian units were struggling against the adaptive nature of the enemy defenses. Maya pulled up the technical specifications for the communication hub, information that was available to all teams but which most had ignored in favor of studying weapon capabilities and tactical formations. She noted power distribution nodes, structural support points, and the electromagnetic shielding that protected the facility's core systems. "The primary defense grid draws power from 3 separate generators," she explained to Thrakmar, highlighting the relevant data on her tactical display. If we can overload just one of them, it will create a cascade failure that will temporarily disable the perimeter shields. But the window will be small, maybe 30 seconds. Throckmar studied the generator locations, each one heavily defended and positioned to provide mutual support. Even if we could reach one of the generators, how could we overload it? My weapons are powerful, but not precise enough for that kind of technical work. Maya was already moving, her small frame allowing her to navigate through gaps in the rocky terrain that would be impossible for larger beings. I don't need to destroy the generator, she called back softly. I just need to convince it to destroy itself. She reached the perimeter of the facility, where motion sensors and automated defense turrets created an seemingly impenetrable barrier. Any normal approach would trigger immediate and overwhelming retaliation. But Maya had spent months studying, not just Federation tactical doctrine, but the defensive systems of dozens of different species. The Void Swarm's technology was based on biological computing systems that responded to specific environmental stimuli. Maya pulled out what appeared to be a simple sensor probe, but her modifications had turned it into something else entirely. She began broadcasting a modified electromagnetic signature that mimicked the bioelectric field of a Void Swarm command node. The defensive systems recognized the false signal and temporarily adjusted their targeting parameters, creating a narrow corridor of approach that lasted exactly 47 seconds. Maya moved through it like water flowing downhill, each step planned and executed with mechanical precision. Throckmar watched in amazement as his partner infiltrated the most heavily defended position in the simulation without firing a single shot. "This is impossible," he muttered, checking his tactical display to confirm what he was seeing. "The sensors show no movement, but I can see her approaching the generator complex." Maya reached the first power generator, a massive fusion reactor that fed energy to the primary defense grid. She didn't attempt to destroy it with explosives or weapons. Instead, she accessed its maintenance panel and began entering a series of commands that appeared to be routine diagnostic protocols. In reality, she was exploiting a weakness in the reactor safety systems that had been discovered during a classified human military operation 3 years earlier. The same operation that had earned her the scar on her palm and a reputation that the Galactic Federation would never be allowed to learn. The generator's output began fluctuating as its internal safeguards misinterpreted the diagnostic data. Within minutes, the reactor was operating outside normal parameters, its energy output creating harmonic resonances that spread through the facility's power grid. The effect was subtle at first, but it built exponentially. Maya was already moving toward the second generator when the first one reached critical resonance. The cascade failure she had predicted began exactly on schedule, with defensive systems throughout the facility experiencing power fluctuations that created brief but exploitable gaps in their coverage. Throckmar received her signal and began his assault, his heavy weapons targeting the temporarily weakened shield generators with devastating effect. But Maya was already inside the facility's core, moving through maintenance corridors that existed in the building's blueprints, but which the simulation's AI had assumed would remain unused. She emerged in the central communications chamber, where a massive Void Swarm command creature was coordinating the defense of the entire sector. The creature was easily twice Throckmar's size, with multiple limbs equipped with biological weapons that could slice through standard armor like paper. The command creature detected her presence and turned with surprising speed for something so large. Its multiple eyes focused on the small human with what might have been amusement. In its experience, single Federation soldiers who reached this chamber usually died within seconds. Maya moved differently than any Federation soldier the creature had encountered. There was no desperate charge, no attempt to overpower it with superior firepower. Instead, she flowed around its attacks like smoke, each movement economical and purposeful. Her knife found the nerve clusters that controlled its primary weapons. Her sidearm targeted the sensory organs that coordinated its defensive systems. The creature's death was swift and surgical, its massive body collapsing as Maya systematically disabled the biological systems that kept it functional. She immediately moved to the communications array, her fingers dancing across controls that had been designed for beings with entirely different physiologies. Within minutes, Federation communications were restored across the entire sector. Emergency signals began flooding in from teams that had been cut off and presumed lost. Tactical data flowed through the network, allowing surviving Federation forces to coordinate their efforts for the first time since the simulation began. Maya's quiet voice echoed through the comm system as she contacted all surviving cadet teams. All units, this is Reconnaissance Team 7. Primary objective complete. Communications restored. Transmitting tactical data and safe routes to your positions now. Across the battlefield, stunned cadets received detailed intelligence about enemy positions, patrol routes, and defensive weak points. Information that would have taken hours to gather through conventional reconnaissance was delivered in minutes, turning a devastating defeat into a coordinated victory. Thruckmar's voice crackled through her earpiece, filled with an emotion she had never heard from him before. Respect. Maya, he said, using her name for the first time. What exactly are you? The simulation pods powered down with a soft hiss, releasing the cadets back into the Academy's training facility. Maya emerged from her pod quietly, her movements still carrying the controlled precision that had defined her performance in the virtual battlefield. Around her, alien cadets stumbled out of their pods in various states of shock and confusion. The Volthari twins stood frozen, their crystalline faces reflecting the harsh overhead lights as they processed what they had experienced. Zarkai's voice resonated with disbelief. The tactical data she provided, it was impossible. She analyzed enemy positions that we couldn't detect even with our enhanced sensory arrays. Commander Vexthul stood at the central monitoring station, his rocky features unusually thoughtful as he reviewed the simulation data. In his 40 years of military service, he had never seen a single cadet accomplish what the small human had done in the span of 3 hours. The Kethvar simulation had been designed to be unwinnable, a lesson in tactical humility for overconfident young officers. Maya had not just won. She had rewritten the entire strategic framework of the battle. Cadet Chen, the commander's gravelly voice cut through the shocked murmur of conversations. Report to my office immediately. Maya nodded silently and gathered her equipment. As she walked past her classmates, their expressions ranged from awe to suspicion to outright fear. Thruckmar, the massive Draknari warrior who had dismissed her as fragile just hours earlier, watched her with the careful attention one might give to a dangerous predator. The commander's office was spartanly decorated, its walls lined with commendations from battles across the galaxy. Vexthul settled behind his desk, his ancient eyes studying Maya with the intensity of a career soldier who had learned to read threats and allies with equal precision. Sit, he commanded, though his tone lacked its usual military harshness. Maya took the offered chair, her small frame almost disappearing into the oversized furniture designed for larger alien physique. Vexthul activated a privacy screen that would prevent their conversation from being monitored or recorded. I've been reviewing your academy records, Cadet Chen. Your test scores are excellent but unremarkable. Your physical fitness evaluations place you in the bottom percentile for your class. Your psychological profiles suggest a quiet, academically focused individual with no significant combat experience. Maya remained silent, her dark eyes meeting his gaze without flinching. And yet, the commander continued, what I witnessed in that simulation was not the work of an inexperienced cadet. The tactical decisions you made, the infiltration techniques you employed, the precision with which you eliminated enemy targets, these are the skills of a seasoned combat veteran. He leaned forward, his massive hands clasped together. So I'm going to ask you directly, Maya Chen, who are you really? Maya was quiet for a long moment, weighing her words carefully. I'm exactly what my records say I am, sir. A human cadet from Earth studying military tactics at the Galactic Federation Academy. Don't lie to me, young woman. Vexthul's voice carried the authority of someone who had interrogated countless soldiers over the decades. I've fought alongside Federation forces for most of my adult life. I've seen Krellian shock troops, Draknari berserkers, and Volthari energy masters in action. What you did today was beyond any of them. Maya's fingers unconsciously traced the hidden scar on her palm. Perhaps you're not familiar with human capabilities, sir. The commander pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's military assessment files. According to Federation intelligence, humans are a recently spacefaring species with limited combat experience. Your people have no enhanced physical abilities, no natural weapons, no psychic powers. Earth's military technology is considered primitive by galactic standards. That assessment is accurate, Maya replied carefully. Then explain to me how a primitive human cadet infiltrated a position that defeated 17 elite Federation teams during the actual Kethvar campaign. Maya stood up slowly, moving to the window that overlooked the Academy's training grounds. Below, other cadets were engaged in physical conditioning exercises, their various species displaying their natural advantages. The Draknari lifted weights that would crush most beings. The Silthari moved through obstacle courses with impossible grace. The Volthari charged energy cells with their crystalline bodies. "Commander," she said finally, "what do you know about human history?" Bexthol consulted his files. "Your species evolved on a relatively peaceful world. Some tribal conflicts in your distant past, but nothing approaching the scale of warfare that shaped most Federation races." Maya turned back to face him, and for the first time since entering his office, she allowed a slight smile to cross her features. "That assessment is incomplete, sir. Humans didn't evolve on a peaceful world. We made it peaceful by being very, very good at removing threats." She moved back to her chair but didn't sit. Instead, she stood at attention, her posture shifting subtly into something that made Vexthol's experienced instincts suddenly alert. "For the past 5,000 years, my species has been engaged in almost continuous warfare. We've fought ourselves, our environment, and every challenge our world could present. We've developed weapons that could sterilize planets, tactics that could break any defense, and soldiers who could infiltrate any position." The commander's eyes narrowed. The Federation's survey teams found no evidence of advanced military technology on Earth. "Because we didn't want you to find it," Maya replied simply. "When first contact was established, Earth's leadership made a decision. We would join the galactic community as a peaceful, technologically inferior species. Better to be underestimated than to be feared." Bexthol leaned back in his chair, processing the implications of what she was telling him. "You're saying that Earth deliberately concealed its military capabilities?" "I'm saying that what you call primitive human technology represents the public face we chose to show the galaxy. Our actual capabilities are classified at levels that don't officially exist." Maya moved to the holographic display, manipulating the controls with practiced ease. The room filled with star charts showing Earth's position relative to the galactic core. "We've been watching the Federation for decades before making contact. We studied your military doctrines, your technologies, your tactical preferences. We learned everything about how you fight wars. And you learned how to fight us," Vexthol said quietly. "We learned how to fight anyone," Maya corrected. "It's what humans do, Commander. We adapt, we overcome, we survive. And when necessary, we eliminate threats with a precision and efficiency that makes most species uncomfortable." The room fell silent as the implications of her words settled between them. Finally, Vexthol spoke. "What's your real military rank, Cadet Chen?" Maya's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes shifted. "My Federation rank is Cadet. My Earth rank is classified." "And your real name?" "Maya Chen is my real name, sir. Though some people knew me by other designations during my years of service." Vexthol studied her for a long moment, his tactical mind working through the possibilities. "Years of service, plural. You're not a recent recruit, are you?" "No, sir. I've been in military service since I was 16. That was 12 years ago." The commander's eyes widened slightly. To most galactic species, Maya appeared to be barely out of adolescence. The idea that she had been conducting military operations for over a decade challenged everything he thought he knew about human physiology and culture. "What was your mission here, at the Academy?" Maya met his gaze steadily. "To learn everything I could about Federation military capabilities while maintaining the illusion that humans pose no threat to galactic security." "And now?" "Now, sir, that mission may have become significantly more complicated. News of the simulation results spread through the Academy faster than light-speed communications. Within hours, every cadet, instructor, and administrative official knew that a human student had single-handedly solved the unsolvable Kethvar scenario. The reaction was immediate and varied, ranging from scientific curiosity to outright suspicion. Maya found herself the center of unwanted attention as she moved through the Academy corridors. Conversations stopped when she passed. Groups of alien cadets would cluster together, speaking in hushed tones while casting glances in her direction. Some looked at her with newfound respect, others with fear, and a few with barely concealed hostility. In the Academy's main cafeteria, Maya sat alone at a table designed for beings twice her size, quietly eating her meal while trying to ignore the stares. The food synthesizers had been programmed to accommodate human dietary requirements, but the portions were still scaled for larger physiques, making even simple meals feel awkward. Thrakmar approached her table cautiously, his massive frame moving with uncharacteristic uncertainty. The Dreknari warrior who had dismissed her as fragile was now treating her with the careful respect one might show a live explosive device. "Maya," he said, his rumbling voice unusually quiet. "May I sit?" She nodded toward the empty chairs, and Thrakmar settled his bulk into the reinforced furniture with surprising delicacy. For a moment neither spoke, the silence stretching between them like a gulf neither was sure how to cross. "I owe you an apology," Thrakmar said finally. "I treated you as weak because you appeared weak. Among my people, strength is immediately visible. We show our power through size, through displays of physical dominance. I didn't understand that humans might be different." Maya set down her eating utensil and looked at him directly. "You weren't wrong to think me fragile, Thrakmar. By Draknari standards, I am weak. I couldn't lift the weapons you carry or survive the injuries you could shrug off. But strength isn't always about physical power." "No," he agreed, his forearms shifting restlessly. "It isn't what you did in the simulation. I've never seen anything like it. You moved through enemy positions like smoke. You eliminated targets that should have been impossible for someone your size to defeat. And the tactical analysis," he shook his massive head. "It was like watching a master strategist with decades of experience." Before Maya could respond, a new voice interrupted their conversation. "Indeed, it was quite remarkable." They looked up to see Professor Kethlin, a tall, elegant luminary whose golden skin seemed to emit its own soft light. She was the Academy's chief instructor in xenopsychology, specializing in the mental and cultural patterns of different species. Her presence at their table immediately drew attention from nearby cadets. "Professor," Maya acknowledged respectfully. Kethlin settled into a chair with fluid grace, her luminous eyes studying Maya with scientific intensity. "I've been reviewing the simulation data. Cadet Chen, your performance raises some fascinating questions about human cognitive patterns." Maya remained silent, waiting to see where this conversation would lead. "You see," the professor continued, "most species approach tactical problems through the lens of their natural abilities. Krellians rely on defensive strength. Dreknari use overwhelming force. Volthari employ energy manipulation. But your approach was entirely different. You seemed to think several steps ahead of every opponent, predicting their responses before they made them. Perhaps I was just lucky," Maya suggested quietly. Kethlin's laugh was like crystal chimes in a gentle breeze. "Luck doesn't explain the precision with which you exploited weaknesses in defensive systems that were designed by different species using completely alien technological principles. You understood those systems better than their creators." More cadets had begun gathering nearby, drawn by the unusual sight of a professor dining with students. Maya noticed Zarkai and Velnai among them, the Volthari twins still showing signs of the shock they had experienced in the simulation. "I've been researching human military history since yesterday," Professor Kethlin continued. "The Federation's files are quite limited, but what little information exists is disturbing." Maya's expression didn't change, but Thrakmar caught the subtle shift in her posture that suggested readiness for action. "According to these records," the professor said, "humans have been engaged in warfare for their entire recorded history. Not occasional conflicts over resources or territory, but continuous, sophisticated military operations involving weapons and tactics that should have rendered your species extinct centuries ago." She leaned forward, her golden eyes reflecting an academic fascination that made Maya distinctly uncomfortable. "Most species develop warfare as a last resort, after peaceful solutions fail. But humans seem to have developed it as an art form. Your people created elaborate strategies for defeating opponents you had never encountered, weapons designed to counter threats that didn't yet exist, and tactical doctrines that assume your enemies will adapt and evolve." "That's an interesting analysis," Maya said carefully. "It's a terrifying analysis," Zarkai interjected, his crystalline voice carrying across the now silent cafeteria. "If humans are natural warriors, why did Earth present itself as a peaceful world seeking Federation membership?" The question hung in the air like a challenge. Maya could feel the attention of dozens of alien cadets focused on her, waiting for her response. Some looked curious, others fearful, and a few displayed the kind of suspicion that could quickly turn into hostility. Maya stood slowly, her small frame somehow commanding attention in a way that size alone could not achieve. "Every species joins the Federation for its own reasons," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the large space. "Some seek protection. Others want access to advanced technology. A few are looking for trading partners or cultural exchange." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembled cadets. "Humans joined the Federation because we were tired of fighting alone." "Fighting whom?" Professor Kethlin asked, her academic curiosity overriding her caution. Maya's smile was small and cold. "Everyone who thought we looked weak." The statement sent a ripple of unease through the gathering. Throckmar shifted uncomfortably in his chair, suddenly remembering every dismissive comment he had made about human frailty. The Volthari twins exchanged glances that carried new understanding of what they had witnessed in the simulation. "But now we're all allies," Maya continued, her tone becoming warmer and more diplomatic. "The Federation provides a framework for peaceful cooperation between species. There's no need for the old ways." Professor Kethlin wasn't satisfied with the diplomatic answer. "But the capabilities you demonstrated yesterday suggest that the old ways are still very much present. How many humans possess your level of training?" Maya gathered her meal tray and prepared to leave. "I'm just one student trying to learn from my alien classmates, Professor. I think you might be reading too much into a training exercise." As she walked away, her quiet footsteps somehow audible in the hushed cafeteria, Maya left behind a room full of beings who were beginning to realize that their assumptions about humanity might be dangerously incomplete. Commander Vexthol, watching from the cafeteria's entrance, made a mental note to send an encrypted message to Federation intelligence. The galaxy might need to reassess its understanding of Earth's newest member species, and soon. The emergency klaxons began wailing at 0347 hours Galactic Standard Time, jolting every being in the Academy from sleep. Red warning lights bathed the corridors in an ominous glow as automated. Systems announced a code black emergency. Hostile forces detected in the star system. Maya was already dressed and armed before most of her classmates had even processed what the alarms meant. Years of military conditioning had trained her to transition from sleep to combat readiness in seconds, a skill that now served her well as chaos erupted throughout the Academy. In the command center, Academy staff struggled to make sense of the incoming sensor data. A massive fleet of unknown vessels had emerged from hyperspace at the system's edge, their configuration and energy signatures unlike anything in Federation databases. They were moving toward the Academy's planet with clear hostile intent. Commander Vexthol's voice boomed through the Academy's communication system. "All cadets report to designated emergency stations immediately. This is not a drill. Unknown hostile forces are approaching our position. Academy defense protocols are now in effect." Maya joined the stream of cadets rushing toward the main assembly hall, noting how different species reacted to the crisis. The Dreknari moved with aggressive confidence, eager for real combat. The Volthari twins flickered with barely contained energy. The Netherian psychics clustered together, their mental links allowing for rapid coordination. But she also noticed the fear. Despite their natural advantages and military training, most of these cadets had never faced actual combat. The Academy's simulations, no matter how realistic, couldn't replicate the terror of knowing that failure meant death rather than just embarrassment. In the assembly hall, chaos reigned as instructors tried to organize several hundred panicked students into coherent units. The Academy's defense plan called for senior cadets to man secondary weapon systems, while first-year students were evacuated to secure bunkers. It was a reasonable plan for protecting young lives, but Maya could see its tactical flaws immediately. "The defense grid won't hold," she said quietly to Throckmar, who had positioned himself nearby. "They're spreading their forces too thin, trying to protect everything instead of concentrating on key positions." The massive Dreknari warrior looked down at her with growing respect. "What would you do differently?" Maya studied the tactical displays showing the approaching enemy fleet. "Those ships are using formation patterns I've seen before. They're not Federation technology, but they're not completely alien either. Someone is using modified Federation designs with enhanced weaponry." Before Throckmar could ask what she meant, Professor Kethlin approached them. The normally composed luminary looked shaken, her golden skin flickering with distressed patterns. "Cadet Chen," she said urgently. Commander Vexthul wants to see you immediately. Something about the enemy ships. He says you might recognize them. Maya followed the professor through corridors filled with running cadets and frantic instructors. The Academy's defense systems were coming online, heavy weapon emplacements emerging from hidden positions throughout the facility. But she could see that the defensive configuration was all wrong for the type of attack they were facing. Commander Vexthul stood in the primary command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing the approaching fleet. His rocky features were grim as he studied enemy ship formations that seemed to anticipate every defensive measure the Academy might employ. "Maya," he said without preamble, "look at these ships and tell me what you see." She studied the enemy vessels, noting their configuration, formation patterns, and approach vectors. After a moment, her expression darkened. "Those are Terran designs, Commander. Modified and enhanced, but definitely based on human military technology." "Impossible," breathed the Academy's chief tactical officer, a Zephyrian named Tekvar. "Earth doesn't possess ships of that capability." Maya's laugh was bitter. "Earth doesn't officially possess ships of that capability, but those are definitely human tactical doctrines they're using. Whoever is commanding that fleet has intimate knowledge of both Federation and Terran military strategies." Commander Vexthul's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying that humans are attacking the Academy?" "No, sir. I'm saying that someone is using human technology and tactics to attack the Academy, but they're making modifications that no human commander would authorize." She pointed to specific ships in the formation. "Those heavy cruisers are carrying weapons that violate at least 6 interstellar conventions on ethical warfare. And their formation pattern suggests they're planning to glass the entire planet from orbit, rather than attempting to capture strategic positions." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. If Maya was correct, they weren't facing a conventional military assault but a potential genocide. "Commander," Maya said quietly, "I request permission to take command of the Academy's defensive operations." Tekvar's mechanical voice box screeched in protest. "Absolutely not. She's a first-year cadet. This is an unprecedented crisis," Commander Vexthul interrupted. "And right now, Cadet Chen appears to be the only person in this room who understands what we're facing." He turned to Maya, his ancient eyes reflecting decades of military experience. "What do you need?" Maya moved to the central tactical display, her fingers dancing across controls as she pulled up detailed schematics of the Academy's defensive systems. "First, we need to evacuate all non-essential personnel to the deep bunkers. This isn't going to be a conventional siege. They're planning orbital bombardment. The defense shields can protect us from orbital strikes." Tegavar protested. "Not from the weapons those ships are carrying," Maya replied grimly. "They've enhanced their firepower specifically to penetrate Federation defensive systems. Our shields will buy us maybe an hour before they're breached." She manipulated the display to show the enemy fleet's projected approach path. "But they have a weakness. They're using standard Federation intelligence about the Academy's capabilities. They don't know about the modifications that were made to our defensive systems last year." Commander Vexthul leaned forward. "What modifications?" Maya smiled for the first time since the crisis began. "The ones I recommended in my tactical analysis course. Professor Kethlin asked us to propose improvements to the Academy's defenses. Most students suggested adding more weapons or stronger shields." "What did you suggest?" the professor asked, though something in her expression suggested she was beginning to suspect the answer. "I suggested we stop thinking like a Federation facility and start thinking like a human fortress," Maya replied. "Instead of trying to withstand a siege, we should be preparing to win one." She activated a series of systems that most of the command staff didn't even know existed. Hidden weapon emplacements emerged from camouflaged positions throughout the Academy grounds. Sensor arrays that had appeared to be simple communication equipment revealed themselves as sophisticated targeting systems, and in the depths of the Academy's foundation, something very large and very dangerous began powering up. "What is that?" Tekvar asked, staring at energy readings that didn't match any known Federation technology. Maya's smile was no longer friendly. "That, sir, is what happens when humans have 6 months to prepare defenses for a facility they consider important." The approaching enemy fleet was about to learn that Earth's newest members of the Galactic Federation had been busy, and that human military philosophy could be summed up in a simple phrase: the best defense is a devastating offense. The battle for the Academy began at 06:12 hours when the first enemy ships entered weapons range. Maya stood at the primary tactical station, her small hands moving across controls with practiced precision as she coordinated defenses that the enemy fleet never saw coming. The attacking ships opened fire with devastating barrages designed to overwhelm the Academy's shields through sheer destructive force. Plasma beams and missile salvos that could have leveled cities struck the defensive barriers with thunderous impacts that shook the entire facility. For exactly 18 minutes, the battle proceeded according to the enemy's expectations. The Academy's shields absorbed the punishment while growing steadily weaker. Emergency evacuation protocols moved non-combat personnel to secure bunkers. The defensive perimeter appeared to be slowly collapsing under overwhelming firepower. Then, Maya activated the trap-hidden weapon systems that had been camouflaged as infrastructure, suddenly revealed their true nature. What the enemy had identified as communication towers were actually railgun emplacements capable of accelerating projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. Sensor arrays that appeared defensive were actually targeting systems for weapons the Federation had never seen before. The first salvo from the concealed defenses took the enemy fleet completely by surprise. Hypervelocity projectiles punched through their shields as if they didn't exist, crippling 3 heavy cruisers before their commanders even understood they were under attack from the surface. In the command center, alien officers stared in shocked silence as their displays showed impossible energy readings from weapon systems that shouldn't exist. "What kind of firepower is that?" whispered Tekvar, his mechanical voice box struggling to process the data. "Human firepower," Maya replied calmly, adjusting targeting parameters for the next salvo. "We've had a lot of practice making things dead from very far away." Commander Vexthul watched as the tactical situation shifted from desperate defense to controlled annihilation. "Those weapons weren't in any of the Academy's construction reports." "No, sir, they weren't. Earth's military has been preparing for this possibility since we joined the Federation. We knew someone would eventually test our resolve." The enemy fleet was regrouping, their formation spreading out to avoid concentrated fire from the surface installations. But Maya had anticipated this maneuver, and her trap was far more sophisticated than simple hidden weapons. She activated the second phase of the defensive plan, and suddenly the space around the Academy became a 3-dimensional maze of destruction. Mines that had been disguised as space debris activated their drives, moving to intercept fleeing enemy ships. Automated defense platforms that had been drifting in seemingly random orbits revealed themselves as highly maneuverable weapons platforms. "This is impossible," breathed Professor Kethlin, watching as human technology systematically dismantled a fleet that should have been able to reduce the planet to radioactive ash. "How long have you been planning this?" Maya paused in her targeting calculations to look at the assembled alien officers. "Since first contact, Professor. My people have a saying, hope for the best but prepare for the worst. We hoped the galaxy would be peaceful, but we prepared for it to be hostile." The enemy fleet's commander was clearly experienced, adapting quickly to the unexpected threat from the planet's surface. The surviving ships formed a defensive formation and began systematic bombardment designed to eliminate the hidden weapon systems one by one. But they were still thinking like Federation commanders, focusing on the obvious threats while missing the real danger. Maya activated the final component of her defensive plan, and the Academy's greatest secret revealed itself. The massive energy signature that had been building in the facility's foundations reached critical threshold, and a weapon system that had taken 6 months to construct finally showed what human engineering could accomplish when given sufficient motivation. The planetary defense cannon fired. Exactly once, the coherent energy beam that emerged from beneath the Academy was visible from orbit, a lance of destruction that punched through the enemy fleet's formation like a spear through paper. The flagship and its 2 escort vessels simply ceased to exist, vaporized so completely that their atoms were scattered across the solar system. The remaining enemy ships, faced with defensive capabilities that exceeded their own offensive power by several orders of magnitude, attempted to retreat to hyperspace. Most of them didn't make it. In the sudden silence that followed the battle's end, the Academy's command center resembled a gathering of beings who had just witnessed something beyond their understanding. The enemy fleet that had arrived to destroy them was nothing but expanding clouds of debris and rapidly cooling plasma. Commander Vexthul was the first to speak. "Maya," he said quietly, "I think it's time for you to explain exactly what Earth has been doing since joining the Federation." Maya began shutting down the weapon systems, each one disappearing back into its camouflaged state as if it had never existed. "My people have been integrating with Galactic society, sir. Learning your technologies, studying your cultures, making friends and allies. And preparing for war," Professor Kethlin added. "And preparing for war," Maya agreed without apology, "because we've learned that in any society, there are always those who mistake kindness for weakness, diplomacy for cowardice, and peaceful intentions for inability to fight back." Thrakmar, who had been silent throughout the battle, finally found his voice. "The weapons you just used, they're beyond anything in the Federation's arsenal." "How is that possible?" Maya turned to face him, and for the first time since he had known her, she allowed her true nature to show completely. The quiet, fragile-seeming student was gone, replaced by something that made the massive Draknari warrior take an involuntary step backward. "Because humans don't just study war, Thrakmar. We perfect it. Every conflict we've ever fought has taught us new lessons about destruction, new ways to overcome any defense, new methods for eliminating threats. When we joined the Federation, we didn't stop learning. We just started applying those lessons to a much larger canvas." She gestured toward the displays showing the destroyed enemy fleet. Those ships were using modified human technology, commanded by someone with intimate knowledge of both Federation and Terran military doctrine. This wasn't a random attack. It was a test to see how Earth would respond to a direct threat against our people. "And how will Earth respond?" Commander Vexthul asked. Maya's smile was not reassuring. "Earth will do what humans always do when someone threatens our friends and allies, Commander. We'll find out who is responsible, where they're hiding, and what it will take to ensure they never threaten anyone again." She began walking toward the exit, then paused and looked back at the assembled officers. "The Academy is secure and all personnel are safe. The defensive systems will remain active until we're certain there are no additional threats. I recommend sending a detailed report to Federation Command explaining that humanity's integration into Galactic society continues to proceed smoothly." As the door closed behind her, the command center erupted in frantic conversations as alien officers tried to process what they had witnessed. Commander Vexthul, however, was already composing a very different kind of report, one that would inform Federation intelligence that their assessment of humanity needed immediate and comprehensive revision. In the corridors of the Academy, word was spreading among the cadets about what had happened. The small, fragile human student who had seemed so out of place among the galaxy's warriors had just demonstrated capabilities that redefined everyone's understanding of what humans could accomplish. Maya Chen, the legendary warrior who had masqueraded as just another cadet, had shown the galaxy that Earth's membership in the Federation came with benefits that no one had fully understood. And in the depths of space, automated probes were already carrying news of the battle toward distant star systems, where other beings who had been planning to test humanity's resolve began reconsidering their strategies very carefully indeed.